who do you think that our conversation today will most benefit?
Young builders who are very passionate about changing the game.
Welcome to Low to Grow, the podcast transforming life's toughest moments into opportunity for growth. I'm Annie, a Forbes Under 30 technology founder whose entrepreneurship journey ran parallel to a mental health awakening. In every episode, I sit down with inspiring individuals and delve into how they managed to turn their personal or professional challenges into opportunities for growth. If you're facing uncertainty in your life, feeling down, or simply need a kick of inspiration to keep moving forward, this is your space for the honest and uplifting conversations that you will want to hear. Hit follow so you never miss an episode, and let's dive in. I'm delighted to welcome Nathaneo Johnson, co-founder of the Series app, a new platform using AI to generate authentic and high-value connections. He is challenging the vanity-driven norms of social media, replacing likes and followers with substance, purpose, and also real-world impact. Describing themselves, so Nathaneo and his co-founder, as 6'5", black and technical, he and his co-founder Sean have already secured $3.1 million in just 14 days from some of the top San Francisco investors. This is commendable because according to Crunchbase, black founder startups received just 0.48% of the total US venture capital in 2024. Nathaneo, welcome to the Low to Grow podcast.
Yeah, Annie, thank you for having me. I'm excited to dive in.
Perfect. So Nathaneo, who do you think that our conversation today will most benefit?
It's a good question. I think young builders who are very passionate about changing the game. I think that's something that I didn't have too much people to look up to, and I also think it's something that's very inspirational and powerful. So that'd be the hope of where this audience goes.
Let's start from the beginning then, Nathaneo. Let's start with your childhood. What was your environment like growing up, and how do you feel that it shaped your early sense of self and also ambition?
Yeah, I think my early childhood mainly stemmed from being a home with a single mother that was mainly focused mainly on education, right? So prioritizing, doing things with SAT and doing robotic competitions in high school. I actually was zoned to go to a different high school for my current, community, which is in Irvine, California. But last minute, I was actually able to apply to get into the better high school in my area. And that small chance I took to go to somewhere that maybe had a bit better teachers or a better rating, right? Didn't seem to matter much when I was a freshman, but ended up to make me valedictorian at the high school at the end of it. So very much influenced me to say, this is somewhere that I wanted to essentially become the best in, right? And you only can do that by being around the best, even at a small scale.
Were there any moments as a kid or as a teen when you felt out of place or underestimated?
One of the main things where that occurred, I'd say, is mainly honestly, way back to middle school. I think like this is when I was doing robotic competitions for like cybersecurity, and then also for something called link bots. And I remember that there was this kind of like selecting of teams. I was like team captain for one of them, but there's very much a stigma where you have to be kind of the best at what you do with a pre-proven track record instead of giving merit to opportunity. And that wasn't my experience there until I had to prove myself by almost like taking, let's say, the mic or, taking the wheel, right, to take that initiative, and then you can gain that respect. So in a very similar way, I want to make sure that that's exemplified, not to disallow people to bring out the right opportunities, but more instead and more importantly, give them the opportunity to showcase what they do best and showcase that first.
That's a great mindset to have. Nathaniel, when you did feel out of place as a child, how did that affect your drive or your inner confidence at that time?
Ultimately, that was something that I actually built confidence from because that was very much something that initially seemed to be daunting, right? And to actually trouble you to not take the right steps and corrections to dream bigger, so to speak. But ultimately, in being able to experience that early, it builds a resilience. Resilience can lead to confidence when you're able to build up enough esteem in yourself to say, regardless of the situation, I know that I'm able to do something. And that's something that's been very prevalent over the last few years, and I hope it continues, of course, within me, but also within others.
I'm quite curious to hear a bit more about your pathway to getting into Yale. What kind of emotions did that bring up?
For me, I actually wanted to go to MIT for the longest time, funny enough. The decision for Yale came senior year, and there's a variety of factors. I think ultimately making Yale an early action choice was mainly because I wanted to go somewhere that could very much give me the opportunity to become a master of all things, right? Not a jack of all trades, so to speak, but a school that was more well balanced. I didn't want to become super engrossed in the technical world and not have the ability and experience to learn about business or economics or law, for example, right? I like physics. So going to a more well balanced school to me made sense at that moment, but I didn't know that would come until much later.
Okay. And how was the whole kind of process of getting into Yale?
Yeah, I think ultimately, like regardless of experience, right, it's very important that you actually base a lot of what you do based on doing, right? And that can come from opportunities given to yourself, but more important than that, that can also come from knowledge. And that can be sort of a simulated experience, right, so to speak. So I don't really think that plays too much of a factor, but as long as that experience is retained in some version or form, I think then it'll be prevalent.
When I was at Oxford, especially during undergrad and the first year, I think a lot of students, no matter what background they had, actually all felt a sense of imposter syndrome after arriving at a really competitive university. And I was curious to hear, did you ever struggle with imposter syndrome after you arrived at Yale?
I actually didn't, right? And that sounds something that's, I think, maybe egotistical, but more to say, I don't think I was overwhelmed, but more underwhelmed coming to a university like that. That's maybe because, I grew up across the coast, had a very different expectation of what that was. But it seemed like a lot of students had made getting into Yale the prime accomplishment of what college is supposed to be, right? When in reality, I think it's just the beginning. That was a very telling sort of feeling in the sense that a lot of people will look to the next level and not know what that level actually holds. It's more the outside precedent and feeling. So it's very important to actually experience that yourself, or at least kind of showcase that and learn that. That will ultimately lead to a much better understanding, and beyond that, right? Like a much better transition outside of like, let's say high school to college, for example.
After arriving at Yale, how did that then lead you to building your own company and also raising venture capital funding for it?
Yeah, I mean, I started at the Yale Entrepreneur Society. I started a podcast here and soon joined that with Sean, where we interviewed like founders and CEOs. But ultimately, it was just being in those communities and spaces that gave some sort of help initially to understand what exactly needed to be done at that level. And then beyond that, right, continue to grow that sort of experience and grow that sort of knowledge as I had more experiences with the entrepreneurial community, not only in Yale, but mainly that have graduated from Yale. And taking that, I also started a fund with another friend at Yale who we helped invest in student founders, right? So definitely just immerse myself in the space in different ways.
That's great. Tell us a bit more about your motivation behind building the series.
Ultimately, that's going to be something that very much will be a direct correlation to the democratization of access, right? That's something that a warm network can only provide. The warm networks are very much gated. They're very much, even say hereditary, but most importantly, they're limited in access. By building series where our goal is for any reason of social connections, business, philanthropic, fitness, even have access to the right people at the right time, right? And that's exactly what these AI friends do is they filter essentially who you are and where you are in accordance to other users in the platform and their friends outside of series as well to help you meet that right person in a given moment. Maybe it's before you go out on a Friday night, maybe it's for a homework assignment or even for a co-founder for your next company, right? Being able to connect with the right person. There isn't currently a social platform to do that because they much more prioritize communities and influence versus relationships on one-on-one.
Okay. You have a co-founder called Sean. How did you know that he was the person that you wanted to build a company with?
That ultimately started because early on we had a great relationship, right? And that stemmed mainly as friends. But beyond that, doing something like a podcast is a great entryway to further understand exactly what value we could get out of working with each other and being able to explore the, you know, positives and negatives of what it looks like to communicate with someone on late nights and early mornings, especially in the entrepreneurship space. You very much learn this is that person that they are. And that was an indication then, which hasn't changed now, to how much in value we're able to give to each other and help connect with each other, right? Whether it's on a daily level and week to week, month to month, seeing that progress over time, something that tells you a lot about a character.
Did you do any incubators? Did you do any particular programs? Like, how did you guys actually turn Series from an idea into a company?
The main difference in that was how we iterated through what a connection looks like on the network level. So initially, you're going to be kind of surrounded by people you know, and that's going to lead you to find your first customers, users, etc. Now, if you have an expanded warm network, the chances in your surface area increases for how successful, or let's say whatever niche that's supposed to be in. So our goal was, how could we build a platform that can encompass and increase the surface area? We started with an AI sort of call agent that could give you rings and kind of converse with you to help you meet the right people and meet them via email. But we soon pivoted to iMessage, right? And one, developing and discovering technology, but two, more importantly, to figure out that this is something that can truly immerse in the current operating system we use. A lot of us today are using iMessage to currently communicate. That feels very natural, feels very human. So if we're able to put artificial intelligence inside of the same system we use on a daily basis, that will very much blend the two worlds together. And that was truly our goal and why we call it AI Friends, to blend the worlds of AI and human interaction so that we can very much continue to control the narrative of how AI plays into our lives in a positive direction, right? And that's helping us meet other real people.
Interesting. What has been some of the main challenges that you'd say you've had to push through up to now in terms of building Series, raising funding, and also building your team?
I'd say one of the biggest challenges was just really determination and grit. There's obviously times where it seems like things may or may not work out, right? In accordance, especially to the odds of, the stats we did pull off or whatever the student is doing your age. It's very much important to be able to have the right connections, the right network at the right time, right? So that's something that we very much want to do, that we want to continue to, I wouldn't say verify, right? But continue to enforce, right? As a sort of way and degree of how we should communicate. So in doing that, the hardest thing to do is really to have that determination and consistent remembrance of pushing through, given that we know there's an equal opportunity somewhere that we can have for ourselves and give out to other people. In doing that, we were able to overcome obstacles of fundraising and overcome obstacles of building out teams and communication tactics. And I think that determination, or underlying determination, led to success where we are today.
And what type of challenges did you have when you were fundraising?
We had the idea of fundraising for a while, right? We obviously talked to VCs before the 14 days. The kind of short time span of the raise mainly came from us understanding what fundraising actually looked like. And that's talking to someone who could actually lead around, which means more than just putting their capital, but also giving the right connections to people to further accentuate and grow exactly what they're doing, right? So in a very similar way, that's what our lead investor is able to do by not just giving us capital, but was also able to make the right connections to help us grow this company. And doing that very much eased up the process. I think before that, we were very much in the, ideation MVP stage.
Did you have an MVP built already before you started fundraising?
Yeah, yeah. So that was something that we presented. Still, we just actually launched our version 2 of the product, but the same MVP was the one that also gained tons of usage, right? So that's where, soon after our college tour, we settled down, stayed on the computer until we could resolve those issues. But yeah, I mean, I think that, you obviously need to have some sort of prototype to raise. We did have a fully functional product, but at the bare bones, right? So just for demonstration purposes and some maybe small use cases, so definitely not something to handle the overwhelming precedent of, virality that post came, but in that moment was something that was functional and usable.
How many users did you have on Series when you first started fundraising?
Yeah, so we actually had a cohort, right, of students, and this ranged from, like, I think across 500 universities. That better help us kind of organize, right, who's using the product, and very much a test case, right, to kind of show investors and ourselves this was viable.
Okay, great. And what are you working on now at Series?
The next thing we're up to now and for the next steps mainly revolves around how we're going to scale this product, right? So we're doing last minute tests on V2 before we fully push out marketing. We'll be launching another product video kind of every week to kind of showcase the new features we add. But main thing is product now, getting that fine tuned and then just distributing that to our audience.
Great. And how big is the team now at Series?
It's very small, right? So besides my co-founder, only 2 other people, and that's mainly just because we wanted to keep it very concise, right? Very minimal, and most importantly, beyond that, have a family, right? Have a small team that can really build and get to know each other with deep relationships, so that when we do scale, we can have us be the leaders that continue to bring out and fully close out this operation.
Are you still studying at Yale or have you dropped out?
I am still studying at Yale, yeah.
Okay, great. And Yale is comfortable with you running this venture alongside your studies?
Yeah, I mean, so it's something that's to be determined, right? But as it currently stands, yes, I'm still enrolled.
Wow, that's actually really interesting. I've heard of, well, a lot of UK universities where students need to basically leave their degree if they start doing a venture. So I think it's very forward thinking for Yale to allow you to still study and run your business alongside it. So that's quite encouraging to see. You've obviously achieved a lot. And from speaking to you, I can tell that you are very efficient and you're very focused in doing what you want to do. If there are people in their teens listening to this podcast and they also have dreams of building a startup, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I would say to just start early and not be scared of determined or not be scared of being normal. I think people think that they can be like the normal while simultaneously becoming more unique and different. Right? When obviously those words don't mean the same thing. They mean the opposite thing. I would just say, dare to be different, right? Kind of the corny version of that. But it's really important that you take strides to kind of use the skills and resources you have to very early on take initiative, right, to what you want to build. Because that's something that only time will take away from you.
Have you ever felt insecure or had doubt in your own abilities?
I wouldn't say doubt. I think there's just been hard times, right, to where you don't know when. I wouldn't say I doubted the ability for it to happen.
That's great. And how do you describe the support system that you have around you?
Say the support system is really good. I think the coolest thing about that is having people in your corner, right? Like your teammates, your family, your friends, loved ones, to be able to constantly remind you what you can do, what's possible. That's something that you should hold very dear to yourself, and I think a lot of people do. So very much so something that we want to continue to essentially utilize and beyond that, right? Continue to follow, right? Follow the people that care about you and can see that potential of you long term.
Before we end, one last question, which is the podcast staple. What is one thing that you believe will allow more people to have better mental health?
Mental health, yeah, it's a good question. I think for mental health, honestly, the biggest thing is just do what you love, right? I think there's very much a discontinuity between doing what you love and working hard. And when you're working hard and not doing what you love, you oftentimes will find things stressful and annoyance. You can go the extra mile or put in the extra hours if you truly enjoy what you're doing. And you're able to do that, there won't necessarily be any discontinuity between what you're currently doing now and the sort of fatigue or tiredness you feel and doing that repeatedly, right? And that's what often causes mental health is like a discrepancy between dopamine levels or how often you enjoy something. Clearly separate those two as what you love and what is work or what's tiresome. It's very easy to see how mental health aligns, right? One in the positive, one in the negatives. Synchronizing yourself towards what you love very much will solve that in my head.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Low to Grow podcast. If it resonated with you, leave a review and hit follow to help more people to find important conversations. Keep growing and see you next time.